This show is sponsored by Den 10 Insurance Services, helping businesses get the right insurance for all their insurance needs. Visit den10.io to get a quote. DENTEN.io. And remember, when you buy an insurance policy from Den 10, you're giving back on a global scale. Hello, all my entrepreneurs and business leaders, and welcome to the Michael Esposito Show, where I interview titans of industry in order to inform, educate, and inspire you to be great. You can have everything in life you want if you will just help other people get what they want. Zig Ziglar. Today, we are blessed with the presence of two guests. Their philosophy is simple: learn to understand people, support your team, and lead by example. Their greatest joy is helping people buy their first home and invest in their future. He has found success in helping others achieve success, from telemarketing for sales executives to creating his own professional business networking group, PNP. Please welcome Adam Simpson. He went from behind-the-counter sales to running a flagship store. He honed his sales abilities and soon shared them with others. Please welcome Doug Hill. Together, they are co-owners and branch managers of Nationwide Mortgage Bankers. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
It's great to be here, Michael.
Awesome. Well, thank you for bearing with us during this long introduction for you two. Usually I start with like everybody's background story, but usually I don't have two guests in studio. So I'm very interested in how you guys met.
I'll let you take this one.
All right. Well, we met at work 2 companies ago.
2 companies.
2 companies ago. So I was a sales manager, and they had formed a new team for me. I was actually a team leader. They'd formed a new team for me. And I got a bunch of less than top-notch salespeople. So I stormed into my boss's office and demanded a trade. And I traded somebody for Adam, who was brand new.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to interject here. I was 3-1, I believe.
It was 3-1.
It was 3-1. It was a 3-1 trade.
I had to give up a lot. But it's like in the NBA, they say whoever gets the best player wins the trade, regardless of how many players swapped. And I feel like I got the best player, so I won the trade. So so that was right at the beginning of Adam's career in mortgages. I saw potential and wanted him on my team, and from that moment, our team never lost.
That's right.
So,
what potential did you see in Adam that you were willing to give up 3 of your salespeople?
It was a combination. It was a combination of what I saw in him and didn't see in the other 3.
High praise for my business partner. That's,
No, it's. I feel like a sales guy can pinpoint other salespeople, right? Like I'd been in sales long enough at that point where I can look at someone, talk to them for 30 seconds, and know if they're A, a good salesperson, and B, are going to handle it, especially in the mortgage industry, which is, a different sales job. So, I talked to him a few times, and he sat way at the other end of the building too. We were 100 feet apart, so it wasn't like we hung out every day at that point. But I don't remember exactly, but I knew he'd be good for my team.
Yeah, Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book, Blink. Did you guys ever read that one?
You're the reader.
Blink is not one that I've read. I've
my
read
father-in-law
Gladwell,
gave it to me, and what he speaks about, he does these, I think it's about 5 different case studies, essentially, that he writes about. And in them, he's talking about like intuition and like what you just said. I don't know what I saw in him, but I knew, he had the ability to be a top producer or a salesperson in your industry. And so what Malcolm talks about is that because we're so accustomed in our position, you're so familiar with sales, and we'll get into your background in there, that it becomes second nature to you. And so the little things that somebody, let's say, the little nuances that somebody maybe newer to sales might see right away and say, oh, he's charismatic, or he projects his voice clearly, he's able to meet new people very easily, become very natural to you to where they're instinctual. So you realize somebody puts their hand out, greets you, makes eye contact, speaks to you. You don't think about all those things that just happened because they're instincts to you. And to you right away, you know that person's going to be a good salesperson versus the person who you go up to and they kind of like are looking at their shoes and you're talking to them. They still haven't put their hand out and maybe they didn't introduce themselves or anything. And immediately you know, well, that person's not cut out for sales, but you might not be able to identify them. So in that book, Blink, that's what he talks about is he uses a couple of different analogies or scenarios. One of them was a police officer who had a unfortunate, had to draw his weapon. And he's talking about the tunnel vision that they end up having and that all of those instincts just kind of like, boom, like hit, but they can't identify what they did in that moment sometimes because of that tunnel vision. It just happens. So anyway, a little intense for sales. But
more intense than sales. Well, luckily I saw it before. Who was your team? Whoever his team leader was at the time didn't see it before I did. Otherwise, I might have had a fight in my hands trying to make that trade. But the other person saw a 3-to-1 trade and thought, seems like a great deal to me. And I'm like, yeah, you should totally take that deal.
Yeah, and I mean, so kind of like just thinking about that, your sales background, Doug, in that I said behind the counter. So would you like to share your story about photography and getting that hard client to buy?
You want the full version or the quick and dirty version? So, yeah, I took a semester off from college and decided I needed a job and ended up, seeing a help wanted sign in a window of a camera store and went in and applied and, it's just a local camera shop and just working behind the counter and, taking in film for processing and ringing up processing orders. That's pretty much all I did. And one day, hadn't been there that long. Everybody was out to lunch. The owner was out. My boss, the store manager, was out, and a guy came in and wanted to look at a camera. And I don't know anything about cameras at the time. And I'm like, sure. I'm not going to tell him to go away and come back. That's not the right thing. I'll show you a camera. So I walked to the other side of the store and spent 45 minutes to an hour with him. Big setup, cameras and lenses and flashes, all of which I knew absolutely nothing about. But, I said a few things that made it seem like I did know what I was talking about. And he bought it all. And right as I'm packaging it up and to bring it over to the register to ring it up, my boss comes back and sees what's going on. And he looks confused. And I didn't think anything of it or whatever. So I rung it up and he left. And my boss is like, how did you do that? I'm like, what do you mean, how did I don't know. He came in, he wanted to see a camera. I showed it to him. He's like, I have been showing that guy cameras for years, and he never buys anything. He's like, you have a new job. You're not ringing up film anymore. You're selling cameras. I was like, okay. And since then, it's sales has been all I've done really. So, and it doesn't, to me, it's never mattered what it was, right? Selling is selling. So I very quickly learned about cameras because in order to be a proficient salesperson, I couldn't always wing it. That worked that one time, but so that got me into cameras and photography and sales all at the same time.
Well, your boss kind of primed him a little bit too, in all fairness, right?
Yeah, he'd tell you he loosened the jar for sure, but I don't know. I don't look at it that way. I look at a lot of failures and one success.
Yeah, I understand that. You also mentioned that for you, it was really understanding the person and understanding people.
Sure. Yeah, selling is definitely about picking out what the customer is looking for, whether or not, and sometimes I don't even know it, right? Like just have a conversation with them and realize they think they know what they want, but I really can see through what they think and figure out what they actually want, and they very often ended up in a completely different place than they thought they were going to end up at, and we're pretty happy at the end. Like, how did you know? Just figured it out. Ask questions and really learn what their goals are instead of, a lot of people are looking for, they have what their immediate goal is. Like, I have this problem, I have to solve this problem this second. That's great, but is that going to solve a long-term problem at the same time? What if we can solve both? So, yeah, figuring out reading people is definitely a big part of it.
How do you think you also gain their trust in order to get them to share that problem and that goal?
It's about asking questions and listening to the answers and not just assuming what the answer is going to be, I think. I think that a lot of sales guys have their own agenda. They've got a product that they want to sell or they think they know, and I just don't look at it that way. I just ask questions and figure out and go with it wherever the conversation goes. And I'm honest with people, right? I'm not going to try to push, even if that's, away from what I'm selling. Like I've got plenty of clients, I know Adam has too, that the end of the conversation is, you should go and do something else, right? Like I don't have the right product, I'm not the right fit, so I think that builds trust as well.
I think so too. It certainly does. For you, Adam, it was tough to build trust right away because you were telemarketing. So that's a little bit more challenging, right?
Yeah, well, yes and no. So you have to understand that when I got into telemarketing wasn't what it is today. I mean, this was, 25 years ago. So, while it wasn't in its infancy necessarily, it was definitely on the front end. And I, similar to Doug, I kind of fell into it, right? I followed a girl out west because I thought that was the best thing for me. And I answered a job ad out there that said, have fun and make money. And I was interested in both of those things and ended up in a telemarketing company, right? Selling printer ribbons to HR managers and people who procured that for small businesses. So.
What was your pitch? Do you remember it?
Oh, my pitch was funny. So my pitch was actually that we had a warehouse fire, and we were trying to clear out room so that we could build a new warehouse, and that folks needed these printer ribbons over time regardless. Why don't you just take a gross? And no one else there sold like that. They sold a printer ribbon here and a printer ribbon there. I'm selling them by the box load.
Wow.
And I'd give them a small discount to take on the quantity, and ended up selling 10 times more than my nearest my nearest salesperson. So
you learned quickly that wholesaling was better.
That's right. Well, it's selling quantity, my friend. Selling quantity.
Yeah, it definitely helps to sell in quantity. I also did telemarketing, or started I don't know if I would call it my sales career in telemarketing, but I took a telemarketing job for a mortgage company.
Did you now?
When I was in college. Yeah, I was at Nassau Community College out in Syosset, and my girlfriend, so I followed a girl like you, my girlfriend found a help wanted or something. I forgot if it was in the college newspaper or somewhere. For telemarketers, it was paying something like $15 an hour or something, which was really good
at the time. Yeah.
At the time, and I believe it was also off the books. It was like cash, so it wasn't. We didn't have any.
That sounds legit.
Yeah. Well, you're going to hear how legit it was. So it was cash, and then so when we got there, it was like a little room, kind of like this podcast studio, maybe a little bit bigger, a couple little setups, booths or whatever, and they would give us the cards. Do you know those cards?
I
right?
do, yeah. Index cards.
The index cards, yeah, with those. And we would call, and you would get an extra $5 for every social security number you got.
Oh boy,
you get an extra $5.
This keeps sounding more and more legit.
It was, it was wild. So then they would have like their, I guess, junior partner or junior associate kind of like oversee us. And they were just, it was just to keep it clean here, it was not legit whatsoever.
Yeah, are you sure this isn't the script to Boiler Room?
I was going to say, this is Boiler Room for mortgages.
Well, wait. The mortgages were legit.
Okay.
I'm just saying they were all cut from a different cloth at that firm. I learned telemarketing very quickly there, and they were very fast paced. They were very high energetic gentlemen, if you can catch on what I'm saying here.
I'm sure.
And it actually helped me decide to stay in college. Because at the time, similar to you, Adam, I was looking to make as much money as I could. And I was like, this is awesome. And I was good on the phones. I was really good at getting people to build that trust, like you said, Doug, like talk to them and get them to have a conversation with me. In fact, originally the brokers were a little like, Michael, you need to make more calls. And then they realized I was actually kind of like engaging the person, just, hey, how's it going? Rather than just, hey, I'm calling from, what was the mortgage company? It was like GMG Mortgage or something like that. They went out. They were gone before 08, I think.
That's shocking.
And instead of doing that, I'd be like, hey, how's it going, Doug? How's your day treating you today? And he'd be like, why are you calling me? Like, I'm calling from G&G Mortgage. So I'd start having a conversation with them and then eventually be able to pull a social and pull a little bit further and moved on. But anyway, these guys, not what I wanted to associate myself with.
So back to college you went?
So back to college I went.
See, I never went back to college. I took that semester off and decided this was more fun than.
That's right. I stayed with telemarketing for a bit. Really until we met, right? We were doing all our mortgage sales over the telephone. We didn't know what, the retail side of things looked like or building relationships or any of that stuff.
So you guys were stuck in your offices back then.
That's it. We weren't
allowed at the company we worked at together. We weren't allowed to solicit outside business at all because they had a retail division that did that, and the retail division was not pleased that we had better rates than they did, and felt it was it'd be unfair to them if we were allowed to solicit business. So we sat in an office all day and just worked the phones.
What did you learn from that and from that experience and changed when you opened your agencies?
Well, I think the best part about that job was that it was all 50 states, and you were because you had so many sales touches. You were exposed to everything, right? So it was I don't know, a decade's worth of mortgage experience crammed into 6 months, right? Because you saw every type of borrower, every type of transaction. It was, it would take you forever, a new person, a really long time to gather that much experience just out on your own, working your own referral sources, because it's just it's a contact sport, right? So, you could talk to, because they had a telemarketing division group that transferred literally people on the phone over to us to talk to. We could talk to as many people as you wanted to in a day. So it was. I thought the experience was really the.
Yeah, we would talk to more people in a day than most loan officers talk to in a month, and it really shortened that learning curve. I think that you're right. That was probably the best thing for us early in our career. And really, that when we first struck out on our own, that was what we were looking to build. Only 2008 changed our business plan.
Something happened in 2008.
I don't remember something.
So before we talk about 2008, because that obviously did rock your industry. We'll fast forward a little bit to you guys opening up your first brokerage together, right?
Well, to be fair, I was only an employee at that point.
Right.
So.
Okay. So how did that?
So we worked, together. There's a whole group of us that worked at the other company, and that we got along really well. And when that company closed that division, and we were all let go, about 20 of us. At the time, myself and two other people decided that we were going to kind of branch out on our own, and we recruited from their current staff a bunch of people that we liked and trusted, support people and salespeople, and we all, as a group, went together and opened a branch for a regional lender. And at the time, that Adam was one of the salespeople that obviously we decided to take. I mean, he was good enough for me to trade 3-1 for. He was certainly good enough to come with us on this venture. And we tried to replicate my other two business partners, who are no longer my business partners, but we tried to replicate on a smaller scale what that company did, because it was really successful at the time, right? It really allowed salespeople to just sell. They weren't out prospecting. You're handed a borrower. Here you go, sell them a mortgage. So it really was a really good system, and I know Adam loved it.
I have to say that was the most fun job I had, because all I did was sell. I didn't do literally any of the other things that I've grown to love since then. It was a singular focus, and while overall, the way that we do business now is I have a lot more friends because of. From a root sales point, spending 100% of your time selling was an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, that's the biggest complaint from salespeople, right? Is the whole prospecting and trying to find new leads and get in front of people. I mean, that's why they hire telemarketers like we once were.
That's what they used. They used a combination of buying leads and calling leads, and doing marketing to drive inbound traffic. And, it was just, they would pre-screen the borrower and send them over to us. And it was amazing. A lot of the salespeople were like, oh, another call. I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, another call. I'm like, sweet, another call. Like, this is, it's why you're here, right? So, how many more calls, Adam, did you and I take in a day than
I took every call I could possibly take.
Couldn't take enough.
You're getting commission for it too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's So I don't. It was an interesting dichotomy of certain people wanted to do just enough, and others were much more like Adam and myself that wanted to do as much as we possibly could.
Which, so many different of these influencers now, Grant Cardone is top of mind, speak about that hunger, that desire that some salespeople have and that some salespeople don't have. And, it's not something you could teach somebody, right? Or you can't just hand it to them either, because apparently from what you're saying in your history, it was handed. It was there for them if they wanted to 10x their lives, and they made a decision.
And I would question like the guys on my team who I didn't think were listen, there's ability and desire are two different things, right? Like if you want it and you're trying and you're just not good enough, that's different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, but if you've got the ability and not the desire, like to me, that seems like a waste. So, and I would question people, I'm like, don't you want to make more money? They're like, no, I'm happy where I am. All right. That's not where I'd want to be, and I'm not, and being in a position where my compensation was directly affected by their production or lack thereof. I wasn't particularly pleased, but I can't hold a gun to anybody's head and say you have to want it. You either want it or you don't. So
right. I'm interested in the sales process of mortgage because to me, it strikes me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's similar to insurance. So in insurance, it's something that you have to have, if you own a vehicle in the state of New York, that is, or if you have a mortgage on your home, it's something that you're obligated to have. And most people are driven by their rates, and they're looking at the coverage and the rate, and then of course the premium and the price and all of that. I assume that the mortgage is very similar in that they need to get a mortgage.
Most people.
Right. So they're calling you because they need a mortgage, and then there's rates. So how do you go through the sales process with them to where they're choosing you over a different broker?
So I don't really think that mortgages are about rates. I mean, a rate is simply what determines your payment. And because most of the industry is going to the secondary market to obtain the money that they're lending out, they all tend to be right around the same rate. I mean, the process of obtaining a mortgage is a complex one and really requires a professional to guide the client down the road to receiving it. I say it all the time. I don't sell a loan. What I sell is the process of obtaining the loan. And I make sure that, A, my clients understand exactly what the obligation that they're taking on is, how it fits into their financial picture overall, and I make sure that the referral sources are taken care of as far as making sure that that transaction gets to the closing table in a timely manner and in a way that the clients really appreciate. And that's what I think we really sell.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and that so many people are driven by the Geicos of the world, the very quick transactional, and I'm relating the Geicos of the world to the mortgage industry too. That very quick transactional, but they don't realize.
Oh, we've got Rocket Mortgage too.
Rocket
So
Mortgage.
Well, there you go. Right? They don't realize what takes place and all the behind the scenes and all of the what you just laid out there. So when a client calls, how are you helping them see that?
Well, I start
value?
every conversation with a client is what are you looking to accomplish? And with that open-ended question, I get a number of different responses, and those responses drive where the conversation goes. Mm-hmm. Like I said, your mortgage is a tool, right? And it might not necessarily be the right tool for you. My job is to find out what your situation is, what your financial picture looks like, what your financial goals are over the next 5, 10, 30 years, and decide what the best way to structure your financing is for you and your family.
Yeah, and so many salespeople miss that opportunity to have that conversation, right? And that's what I would assume makes it different in your roles, right? And helping these salespeople learn this.
For sure, absolutely.
Yeah, you can tell the when you talk to different loan officers, who treats the transaction like that and who treats it as, well, my rate's the lowest,
right?
And it's weak salespeople. In my opinion, go right to, well, my rate's lower.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's great, assuming it closes on time and you put them in the right product and you give them the best advice. It's not always about.
It's almost a red flag.
Price is what you pay, value is what you get.
That's right.
So we definitely think that the value that we offer, from our years,
we've got a lot of
years
too
of
many
experience.
years. Let's not talk about
A lot
that.
of years, yeah, a lot of years. Is meaningful and valuable, right? So,
right.
We get people to the closing table or prevent them from getting to the closing table when they probably shouldn't.
Well,
right?
there's that as well.
So.
Which also, again, goes back to that integrity piece of as a good salesperson of realizing, hey, this product's not a good fit for you.
Right.
You might either need to spend a little more time reevaluating what you want, what your choices are. So you open up this brokerage, you got your 3 partners, Adam's part of the firm. Did that continue before '08 or did you guys have a different transition?
We opened in late 2006. So we had a little bit of time, very little bit of time right before it started to collapse. But we were still trying to figure out, how we were going to structure it, what it was going to look like, where our business was going to come from. So we were just kind of getting going. And then one of my business partners followed a woman to New Mexico. Everybody.
To be fair, that one was his wife.
That one was his wife. That's a good point. So his wife decided to move to New Mexico, and she said, "Come or stay, I don't care." And he decided to go. More power to him. So then it was down to just me and my one business partner at the time, and we're just the 2 of us now trying to figure it out. And and then 2007, 8 happened, and we had to reevaluate a lot of things.
Was there any pre-planning into going into 2007 and 8? Did you see anything, like any writing on the wall kind of for you guys?
I don't think anyone did.
No, it happened so quickly. It once it started to happen, it was too late, right, at that point. But I mean, we went from having a fairly not a huge pipeline of business, but good enough pipeline of business to continue the way we wanted to continue and to build and grow. And just every day, more and more of those loans were gone because the investors that those loans were being sold to were going out of business or pulling products, or it was just chaos. Every day it got worse and worse, and there was nothing you could do at that point. I mean, there's nothing anybody could do. The whole industry, it wasn't like it was. It's not like anybody thrived during that time. So
right.
There was no stopping it. It was an avalanche.
So how does that affect the when the loan defaults, right? Or they go into foreclosure, or as you said, the bank gets bought out or goes bankrupt or whatever it is. How does that affect the brokerage? Do you get backed on your commission? Do you not get paid commissions?
It depends on a variety of factors. So it also depends on what type of lender you are. So we were what's called a correspondent lender, which means we lend our own money, but then after closing, we sell the loan and the servicing to somebody else, to a larger bank that somebody's heard of, Chase or Wells Fargo or Countrywide at the time or whoever. So every bank we would sell to had their own rules on that. So depending on where that loan ultimately ended up would dictate how long that loan had to perform for us not to get charged back. Luckily, I don't think it was we never got hit on
in
that.
terms of, that's what I
it
was
was
saying.
loans that died before closing.
Before.
The products got pulled, investors went out of business. It was
So
not,
your projections were off more than it was your.
Oh yeah, all the loans that we closed were fine. It was.
We spent time calling people to tell them that there was no longer a home for their loan.
Yeah,
that was our job for a couple of months.
It was awful.
Just calling people and telling them, "I'm sorry, we no longer have a loan for you."
Yeah. Neither does anybody else.
How did you guys create the mindset to be able to, I guess, make those calls, go into the office, make those calls, and know that
a lot of people didn't. We lost
almost everyone.
Yeah, almost everybody left at that point. It was just what are you going to do? And there's nothing left to sell. So yeah, it wasn't fun for sure. But I always tell my salespeople that the best time to give your client bad news is right now. Every second you wait, it's worse, right? So the second you've got bad news for somebody, you need to tell them right now. There's so many things that impacts. You can't. They might have a lease on their apartment that they still have time to renew. They might have, who knows, right? So yeah, we just kind of faced it head on and realized it wasn't our fault. We're not doing it to them. We're just unfortunately the bearer of really sometimes some really bad news. But,
Yeah. It's a tough mindset to get into, right? Because you're also seeing the writing on the wall for yourself, your career. You're trying to figure out where you're going to go next, but then you have to share a different set of ideas with somebody else.
That was the hard part, right? Like it was really hard on us, obviously, and so we're trying to not only navigate that, but then also ruin somebody else's day.
To some extent, right?
So that was really hard to navigate, trying to balance figuring out how we're going to survive, both financially, personally and as a business. Like it's how do I pay my mortgage and the rent, and so it was tough, and also at the same time ruin people's lives.
Yeah, or
temporarily,
because you weren't doing it. Yeah, so many entrepreneurs and business owners are. What we hear is the word grit. We hear so often it's very widely used grit. They have grit and fortitude and all these different things, and it's hard to really describe what that is sometimes. But you painted a scenario, Doug, of what that looks like to some extent. In that you went from doing really well, opening up your own firm, getting slammed in '08, and you shared a story through your bio with me of what it was like at home. You were pulling from your personal finances to support the team, the staff, the business, and then at home it was a little bit even more challenging because this is personal, right?
It was ugly. I mean,
could you share a little bit of that?
Yeah, I mean, I went through a long time without a paycheck, and I only had so much money saved up at that time. I burned through that pretty quickly. A lot of that went back to the business. I mean, it's at the time Adam was still an employee, and I wanted to make sure he got paid so he could afford his mortgage. So we my other business partner at the time and I sacrificed a ton to try to keep it going because we knew that the end game, the end goal was still a successful mortgage operation, right? So that was still our ultimate goal. So how do we get there? So yeah, it was a lot of sacrifice. I mean, I filed bankruptcy twice and staved off foreclosure miraculously, and borrowed where I could and pinched. I mean, luckily my kids were young. We had a Goodwill Christmas one year where my amazing wife went to Goodwill and bought some awesome stuff and turned it into a Christmas that the kids had no idea. They never knew. So they were thrilled. Right. So now, if they were teenagers, it would have been harder to mask.
Well, you can get them to work, though.
Yeah, fair point. But they were young, and they were both elementary or school age or younger, and it was definitely a challenge.
And then on the other side of that, you then go and open up a new brokerage or get it back up to speed?
No, it was the same. We were the same company, same branch. We went all the way from a staff of 20 down to like 5, and a few people that stayed, Adam being one of them, and we got through the worst of it and started seeing a little bit of improvement, and then the first time home buyer tax credit in 2010 kind of turned it all around again for us, and that restarted the housing market. But that 2 years was something. It was something
very difficult. And and the reason why I relate that to grit and tenacity and all that is because I mean during all that time you could have decided, you know what, I'm going to throw in a towel and just get a job somewhere, right? You had enough sales knowledge to be able to pick up a job somewhere else.
Yeah, I have. You're right, but the problem is I'd still be doing that, working for somebody else, and
right.
and listen, sales income is somewhat uncapped, but it's more uncapped, right, when I have a sales team working for me than it is when I'm selling myself. So, I could have done that for sure, but it didn't seem. It would have taken a long time to dig myself. It would have taken longer to dig myself out of the hole that 2008 put me in doing that. And I didn't want to waste a decade trying to undo. Yeah. It also would have been admitting failure, and I'm not particularly good at that. So
many of us aren't.
So I instead of throwing in the towel and saying that I failed, it was to me better to continue plowing through, and just had some faith that on the back end it would all work out, right? So.
Well, you are a golfer, so the back end is sometimes where you try to pick it up. For you, Adam, as you were experiencing this with him during this time, because you're with his firm the whole time, and obviously, this is affecting you as well. What was that like?
Oh yeah, I mean, you use words like tenacity and grit, and I like those words better than what you'd probably hear from my wife, which is stubbornness. Listen, this is what I picked. The whole reason I took a mortgage job is because, when I had my son, I decided I needed a real job. I couldn't be a telemarketer anymore, right? So I was also committed to not throwing in the towel, and I knew that, on the other side of this, if I did the things that I needed to do to build my brand, that the financial reward would be there, and I was willing to put in the effort and the time and make the sacrifices that were required in order to stay the road.
Mm. What were some of the adjustments that you made as a salesperson, going from phones ringing off the hook to now you got to figure out how to find someone? Yeah, I mean, that was a tough transition. It really was, and I spent a lot of time really thinking about what my business model looked like, and the phones ringing off the hook just wasn't a thing anymore. It went away for everybody, and I decided that the way that I was going to do business moving forward was to concentrate on relationships and go into the community and brand myself as a business person that happened to do mortgages. And every book that I had ever read told me that in order to be successful, that I needed to do things for other people. So the way that I brainstormed doing that is I started a networking organization of my own. And, I had a number of people that I would do business with, that I would send referrals to, that it was very difficult for them to reciprocate, right? So an attorney, for example. I needed an attorney on every transaction that I do. However, by the time a client gets to an attorney, they've already figured out their mortgage, right? So the attorney really can't send me anything, right? But what they do is get business from people like realtors who can send me things. So I called in a couple of chips. I said, listen, I know it's difficult for you to reciprocate directly to me, but here's my vision for this networking organization. I know you know people that can be beneficial to me. Why don't you bring them out? We'll talk a little about their businesses. We'll figure out what good referrals are for each other, and we'll go from there. And I had no idea whether or not it would work. And quite frankly, in my heart of hearts, I probably didn't think that it would, and it did. and it over time. I mean, this was over time, a 6-8 year period. I grew what started in a room with 6 or 7 people to an organization that was running, 12 different chapters in 5 different counties. And, my mailing list was 1,200 people, and they all knew that my goal was to bring small businesses together to benefit each other. And because of that, they wanted to help me grow my own business. Yeah. And so PNP was born. What year was that?
Oh, God, I think that was 2009.
2009. And
Yeah.
PNP stands for?
Professional Networking Powerhouse. It's a really stupid name. In fact, early on, we had a contest where we gave out a bottle of Bacardi for whoever came up with the best name, because I'm not a creative guy. I don't name things.
That's the best name.
That was the best name. I can tell you some of the other ones were significantly worse.
I didn't know about this contest.
Yes.
I feel like I would have been a bottle of Bacardi richer had I known about the contest. I think I could have beaten Professional
You
Networking
probably
Powerhouse.
could. Most people could have. I do like the logo, though. The PNP is snappy.
I like PNP as an abbreviation.
Yes, which is why that's what we call it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You should just stop telling people what it stands for.
Very little people know what it stands for. I think people make up their own power networking, powerhouse, whatever it is. But it is a fantastic group. It's how we met. Something that I think you just kind of brushed over is that you said 13 chapters in different counties, and what's really cool is that the purpose that you established it for was to create essentially relationships and leads for yourself to some extent, right? With the idea.
I mean, listen, nobody does anything, purely for others, right? We all have the hope that the effort that we put in for other people will be reciprocated, maybe not necessarily directly from the person that you're helping, but from the universe in general, right? And, I've ever since I started PMP, I've lived by the credo that, if I do enough for other people without the expectation of reciprocation, that it'll kind of work out for me.
And that it'll come back. And that's where I'm going with the 13 chapters, is that you can't be in 13 places at once.
No, I built a really good leadership team. I think one of the things that made it successful is that it's a free organization. I never charged anybody for anything. And because of that, I found other people that were like-minded and appreciated the vision and wanted to help it grow. And, over that 8 or 10 years that we were building into the organization that we became, I found I was lucky enough to find some people that had similar mindsets that did a great job of going out and doing a lot of the word of mouth referral stuff for me, right? They talked about PMP being an organization where people could come together, and they brought people to meetings. And, I would go to a chamber event, and I would have, all these PMP members bring people to me and say, hey, this is Adam. This is somebody you need to know. He runs this thing, right? So, it made me stronger in all the other stuff that I did.
Something that people ask me with all the different things that I do between the podcast, the events, and all the different ways that I kind of mirror that kind of marketing with you is like, well, how many policies did you sell out of it, Michael? And sometimes I really don't know, to be very honest. And I'm interested in your thoughts on that question, how it makes you feel, not how many mortgages you sell out of it, but what you think about that when people.
So I get that question a lot, right? Is how do
you
you make money on this, right? And you can't quantify it, right? Here's what I'll say, and I have a standard answer, obviously, and that standard answer is similar to yours. I don't know, right? What I do know is that if not for PMP, I wouldn't be in this business anymore. What I do know is if not for PMP, I wouldn't have a lot of the friendships that I have today, and I wouldn't have gotten to meet a lot of the people that have made a meaningful impact, not only on my business, but on my life.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's I echo those same remarks. And one of the other things I wonder about to help our listeners is in terms of those networking spaces, because you are a professional networker. You started your own professional networking group. You are successful in the chamber in terms of networking and meeting people. What could you share with our audience on how to be a good networker?
Well, the beauty of being a good networker is it utilizes many of the same skills that it takes to be a good salesperson, right? It's asking good questions. It's the desire to learn about people and what their motivation and goals are. It takes the ability to be able to connect somebody that you met last week with somebody that you met tonight, right? A lot of it is finding opportunity for other people and trying to put them into a position where you can, it's a professional matchmaker, right? And over time, you become known as the person that has the connections, right? I can't tell you how many calls I get in a given week that say, "Hey, Adam, I'm looking for somebody who does XYZ, right? Do you know anybody?" And for me to be able to provide that for them is a service that just it makes me stronger as someone in the community.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And my final PNP question for you is, you do something really cool at PNP where everybody gets an opportunity to share their 30-second or a 2-minute elevator pitch. I usually take the 2 minutes, sorry. My question to you is, since you've been in the room with so many of these people, and you've seen it so many times or heard it so many times, what recommendations do you have for people for their 30 second to 2-minute elevator pitch?
Well, I think that first of all, you should put some thought into where you get your business and how to identify those opportunities before the opportunity becomes apparent to other people. I mean, when you're in a room of people like that, what you're actually doing is educating the other people in that room how to spot opportunity for you. Right. So I'll give you an example for me. Right. A lot of times, by the time someone finds out that their friend needs a mortgage, they've already got that mortgage. Right. So my job is to identify for them a way for them to see that opportunity before it happens. Right. Do you know somebody that just graduated college and got their first job? Do you know someone who just got married? Do you know someone who had a kid? Do you know somebody whose grandparents recently passed away and we're looking to turn, to pass on the family home? So if you can identify ways to spot opportunity for you and educate the other people in the room, that's what's going to make a really powerful business snapshot.
Yeah, I think that helps too. It's interesting, some of the business snapshots, as you call them, that we hear sometimes, and not knowing that. So I think it's really important to figure out what that is out before,
and be prepared to give it.
And be prepared.
There are, plenty of people who stand up at those meetings and just clearly haven't put any thought at all into what they're going to say, and it ends up being a kind of a meandering, 2-minute spiel with no continuity or clarity to what they're actually trying to accomplish. So yeah,
I'd identify that as nerves. Is that what I see in public speaking is people are nervous to speak publicly or speak in front of a group, which even in front of a group of 10 people can be nerve-wracking. And so they put it off. They put off the putting together their 30-second pitch or the 2-minute pitch. They put it off for as long as they can. And then they get there, because I know this because I've actually coached individuals about this. And they get there and I see them. This actually just happened recently at one of your P&P events, Adam. I see them and I say, "So do you know what you're going to say?" "Oh yeah, I'm gonna just wing it when I get up there." I go, "Okay, that wasn't a great strategy, but I'm gonna give you the most confidence I possibly can while you're going up to wing it." And so what it is they're nervous going in, and then they get there, they know, "Oh darn, I got to do this," and so they go up to speak and they really just wing it, to your point, and they're so nervous that they just end up rambling, and they're not being conscious of what to say. I would say too, to just kind of just add to you, Adam, to what you just said there, is for those people is just put 2 or 3 bullet points together and just make sure you hit all 3 of them in those 2 minutes, and you'll be good to go. Even if you ramble a little bit, those will keep you focused and in line.
Yeah, I don't think there's any shame in having note cards the first couple times. Like
I stand up with a note card all the time.
I wouldn't judge somebody for having note cards to keep them on point.
So Doug, when Adam had this idea of P&P, I'm interested in what your thoughts.
To be fair, it wasn't his idea.
Oh.
Well, the implementation was my idea.
It wasn't mine.
Right?
It was not
neither
my
of our
idea.
ideas.
It was not mine. I'm not taking credit. I'm just saying.
We all know that all ideas stem from somewhere.
That's true. I just want to be factually accurate.
But when Adam started working on this idea and started bringing it to the table, I'm interested in your thoughts, and also then how you saw it affect the business and maybe affect Adam and your sales team. Because at the time now he's still employed by you.
Yeah, no, at the time, I think at that point.
Yeah, no, it was before.
It was before. Okay, so yeah, you're right. So at the time, I thought it's a good idea. He had. You were in BNI already at that point.
I was.
Right? So you'd already done some networking and had some success. So I thought more networking is always a good thing. And we definitely, like all networking, you don't see immediate results. That's not the point, right? You don't go to a networking event to walk out with business.
That's right. I sold 7 loans that year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but
that's important for people to realize.
Yeah, it doesn't
too.
work. We do see it, and he sees it more than I do, because obviously he's way more involved in P&P than I am. I go to meetings because I enjoy them and I try to build my brand. But obviously Adam runs it. But you definitely see people who get frustrated after a meeting or two. And I'm like, that's not what it's for. It's about building relationships. Those relationships will eventually bring you business, but it's not like everybody walks in with a stack of referrals to hand out. Like, oh, I hope there's an electrician at this meeting, so I can hand them these 3 people that need an electrician. Like, that's not how it works, right? So, so it definitely took some time for him to build. I don't think it had much of an impact on anybody else in the office because really Adam took a much more aggressive, stance on networking than any of the salespeople did. I mean, most loan officers, I think, in general, certainly the ones that I've worked with or know, feel like they all get their business from realtors, right? Get your business from realtors. That's where it comes from. And Adam's philosophy was entirely opposite with that. Like, I don't want business from realtors. He'll take the business from the realtors, but he wanted to build his business getting business from everybody else because that business is less competed for. So I don't think it really carried through to other people in the office, but clearly it should have because it worked for him.
It worked for him. How did you, as the owner of the firm at the time, I've called it a firm, an agency, a brokerage. Correct me here. What do you prefer?
Okay, so what we are is we are a branch, right? We're employees of a mortgage company. This is a different mortgage company now than it was at the time. We've changed companies, but we're W-2 employees. On paper, I'm the branch manager because you can only have one. But we are business partners in running that branch. They give us autonomy in staffing and how we run the branch, as long as everything's compliant, which it of course is. If anybody from the bank department is listening, it's not a firm. It's not. We don't own the mortgage company. That was, I don't know, I still correct my mother on that. She thinks I own the mortgage company.
It is a difficult thing to wrap your head around.
Listen, in New York, mortgage franchises don't exist, right? Doesn't work that way. But this is as close to that as you can be legally, right? So we are almost a franchise, but not a franchise because you can't have franchises. So, we just get autonomy to run our branch the way we see fit. When hiring, firing, how we do things is left to us, and we do things very differently than most of both companies. In fact, we were definitely the oddballs. Our philosophy doesn't match traditional mortgage company operations.
Share that with us.
So, I think the biggest difference is where we put responsibility throughout the transaction on who has the responsibility. So most loan officers go out and get their own business. They prospect for referrals. They get the referral. They get the client. They sell the loan. They take an application. They collect all the documentation. They structure the loan. They put the loan together. They send the initial disclosures. They do everything. They send the loan to processing. The processor takes a fairly complete package, sends it in to underwriting, gets the commitment back with new things on it that are needed. That list goes back to the loan officer. The loan officer goes out and gets more documents from the borrower and is doing all this work on this one loan, and only like 10% of it was sales, right? So much of it is administrative work. Why am I taking a salesperson away from sales to do something that anybody can be taught how to do, right? Literally anybody can gather mortgage documentation. Anybody can do that, right? So our philosophy was always, it was mine and then ours was, let's take that off our loan officer's plate. Let's put it on to a more of an administrative person, or me. I do a bunch of it myself as the branch manager, take it off their plate and let the salespeople sell. Like, why on earth do I want a salesperson chasing W-2s and updated bank statements when they could be out prospecting for new business or writing new loans? It made no sense to me. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why we're the only ones that do it that way. Like, it's mind-boggling when I interview loan officers and explain our process, and you can see the wheels turning in their head, and you can see the light bulb moment. They're like, well, hold on a second. That means I got like 6 hours of my day. I don't have to do that anymore. You got it. Go sell. So we're a little different. There's a variety of ways we're different, but I think that's the biggest one. So we just structure things differently. We call loans a loan at a different time than a lot of places people do. Like, a lot of people, so it's just different. So when we come on board to a new company, it's only been twice, but both times it's been a little bit of a learning curve to figure out how we can take how we do things and implement it with them, and how they can in turn, support us in the way we do things.
But it makes sense. I mean, I've been in sales for, I guess, 20 years or so.
No one's going to hear this, right? This is a secret. I don't want anybody to know. Don't tell anybody.
Listen, people know because salespeople ask for it all the time. Companies don't give it.
I don't understand it.
They don't give it.
Like I tell when I interview prospective loan officers, people, not newbie loan officers, people who are have been loan officers for years and experienced and have worked for companies, it says branch manager on the name plaque outside my door, but it might as well say loan officer assistant. Like I will do I don't care. I'll do whatever needs to be done to close as many loans as we can close. And I don't mind calling and chasing docs or doing any of that stuff because, I want my loan officers selling. Right. So I'll do whatever needs to be done. I'm definitely not, the guy that sits in the office saying that's not my job. Like it's all my job.
And I mean, that relates to when, I asked you about how do you lead, and both of you essentially said, by example.
Well, sure.
And we talked about that in the beginning of the show, is leading by example and setting that tone for the team.
I always found that the way to motivate, the salespeople that Adam and I always want to have are the guys that want to do as much as they possibly can, right? Not the other group that we talked about before, but the guys who are competitive. The best salespeople are ridiculously competitive. I mean, Adam and I play golf together. We play racquetball. It doesn't matter what we do.
Who wins most of the time?
He wins at golf and I win at racquetball.
I think racquetball's fairly even.
And there we have it. The competitive gene kicks in.
Golf less so.
He wouldn't admit failure.
Takes a big man to admit failure, Michael.
So I always found the best way to motivate those guys was to beat them, right? So when I was in sales jobs where I could focus more of my efforts on sales, I always made sure I was number one, and that's the same for Adam. Since now he's more of the two of us, the one that does more producing, he's almost always the number one guy in the office, so that you can't expect a loan officer to close 75, 80 units or whatever whatever number they want to close in a year if you can't do it, right? So if the best we could do was half that, how can we expect somebody to do double that? Right. So Adam's always got beat once.
I did get beat once.
We had to go fishing because of that.
I know. That was a rough day.
What was that experience like? What did that teach you?
So one of the things that we do with our team is every time we close a loan, we put a fake $100 bill into a bucket, and that fake $100 bill has the loan officer's face that closed that transaction. And then at the end of the quarter, when we're celebrating our successes, we open the box, we count up all the $100 bills, we figure out who has the most faces, and that person gets to pick what we do as a group, just a fun activity, with all the dollars that are in the bucket.
Right.
So we've done a number of different things. Normally I win, so I get to choose. This time I did not. So we went, it's not quite deep sea fishing, right? We were out on the Long Island Sound.
It's not what I expected.
It was not, and
it was as boring as I expected.
But I think the important thing is that it was important to him.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. While fishing isn't our thing at all, the loan officer that won really enjoyed doing it. He picked it. We didn't give him any kind of hard time on it. We're like, all right, that's what we're doing. And we
put him on waiters.
I think we faked it pretty well through it. And, it was still fun. Like we enjoy hanging out with our team, right? Like, we don't work with people that we don't like. When we interview people, half of it is, are you going to be a good fit here? Mm-hmm. Because, we've worked together for forever. Our processors have worked with us forever. Yeah. Going back to that other company. Like some of these people have worked with us John's been with us for ever.
13 years or
So,
something.
we're talking about 15 plus years. I don't want to work with someone for 15 plus years I don't like. So we enjoy our team building, even if it's something we don't really want to do. And that was really the only thing that we've done that I didn't really want to do. We've done a lot of cool stuff, whether it's snowmobiling in Vermont. We did that last winter. We've rented side-by-side ATVs and gone barreling over jumps and stuff. Indoor skydiving. We've rented a go-kart track to ourselves for an hour and raced go-karts. Cool stuff.
A lot of fun stuff.
Yeah.
I would assume that builds a tremendous culture amongst everybody as well, not just for you both.
Yeah.
We like to think so.
Well, yeah, that's the idea, right? Listen, this job is not, no sales jobs are easy. This one is particularly not easy. So if you can't have fun, what's the point?
Yeah. Going back to the whole P&P and how it kind of resulted into different things. So Adam forms P&P. At the time he was an employee. Was that one of the things that you saw to start just talking about partnership?
Sure, absolutely. So my old partnership, whatever partnership I had, we always had kind of a split in roles. One would more handle the sales end of stuff, and one always handled more of the operations side of it. And I definitely saw that Adam was building something where he could, really run the sales half really well. Because hopefully the idea was to teach other loan officers how to do that. Now, it's really hard to do that, and he's tried to do it. Not everybody is capable or has the mindset to do it, but at least show them a path that is possible. So I stepped more towards the operation side. So I definitely produced on the sales side way less than I had, but it worked.
It's a nice balance. You're more of the operations. You're Adam more of the sales. So what was it like for you, Adam, when the decision became to partner up with Doug?
Oh, it wasn't much of a decision.
I don't think we should tell the whole story.
Yeah, no, probably not. But it was an immediate yes. I mean, listen, I believed in the company. I've always wanted to own my own business, and I believed in the direction that we were going. So I think it was something that was inevitable at some point.
Did anything change for you when you went from W-2 employee to which I understand you guys are, but so more so, did anything change for you when you went from employee status to ownership status?
I had a bigger budget for P&P, I'll tell you that.
You were able to allot more cash.
That's right. That's right. And I was able to devote more resources to it for sure. And to be fair, it grew the organization even more. So.
And it helped. Yeah. So staying on P&P now, P&P does also a lot for the community. And just recently you guys did a big Thanksgiving celebration or holiday celebration where people brought in non-perishable items
for the most part.
But you guys do this. You do this often too. You also do one in the summertime. You do a lot. Could you share a little bit about how P&P has not transitioned, but also added to? Actually, is more the right word.
Yeah. So
from networking to
P&P wasn't just my animal, right? My wife was heavily involved in putting this together too, and she early on decided that it was important for us to have a philanthropic arm, right? We're all small business owners. We all rely on the community to be in business, and we've always felt strongly, Becky and I, that we should be giving back to the community that has given so much to us. And I've been blessed with a membership that by and large believes in that. And anytime I make an ask, they go far beyond what I would ever expect in terms of what they're willing to give. So, we do a food drive once a year, typically around Thanksgiving. We're going to be doing a toy drive in December, which is really cool. We've done stuff during the summer at our picnics. So yeah, this community is extremely giving, and I've been lucky enough to lead the effort in that.
Yeah, it's a really great community too. The different P&Pers that you meet, and I've made some really great connections by going to different PNP events and have met some really great people. And I'm assuming that also helps in the business, in the philanthropic arm of the business, right? Is that Nationwide, or your branch, gets to partake in giving back to this community.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that brings a lot. Something else that you both had want to give back to your community was through podcasts. I'm interested in where that journey is, and if you could shine a light on
it's pretty much exactly where it was when we talked about it the first time. It is something that I continue to think about. I was interested in seeing this right, and getting a sense for how you. So how this came about is I mentioned to Adam a year ago or so that I thought maybe doing some sort of podcast would be a good way. And the way I would have done it was to bring in other real estate people and whether it's a home inspector or an appraiser or an attorney, and just talk about what they're seeing and try to help homeowners or prospective home buyers navigate the process. And he said, I had to talk to you. That's what he said. He said, this is the person to talk to when it comes to podcasts. So then here we are. Nice. And you thought it'd be great to bring us in here.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's a great experience, I think, for business owners and for people to be able to share their story, be able to share their story with others and their knowledge and their tips. So what have you gleaned from this experience that you could share with our audience from podcasting?
Yeah, it's you're definitely prepared, and it's I would from if I did it, I would need more preparation, I think, than I thought I'd need. I was a little surprised how much you do ahead to prepare. From your what you ask to learn about us coming in to so it's a lot of work, obviously, but I'm not opposed to work. It's just nice to have a sense of what that work is. Otherwise, I would just be winging it. And as I've said, I don't think winging it's a great idea.
No, winging it is not a good idea. Yeah, I highly recommend it for anybody who's interested in podcasting or sharing their messages. To
still kicking around the golfing with Nationwide option.
I like it.
Yeah, and whether or not it's a video or just audio, like I haven't figured all that out yet, but
just start, right?
Yeah,
just start.
There is a lesson in there. Like you can't do it until you start to do it, right? So
yeah, it's hard sometimes though.
Listen, starting anything is hard, right? Yeah. I made so many mistakes, starting PNP, and I wound it down just prior to COVID because my time was in different places, and now starting it up, it's like I've made all the mistakes. I have a roadmap now, which made it much easier to restart. And I think as well as anybody, starting something from scratch is you got to get through the mistakes, right?
Yeah. And much credit to you and to that PNP community in that you kind of did like shut it down during all of COVID, but as soon as you re-engaged everybody, and I remember seeing that email out of like, hey, we're all going to be meeting, PNP starting up again. It was like, wow, I hadn't been to a PNP event in a long time. And for me, in the role that I play at Den 10 now, I don't do as much networking. That's why we hire salespeople, right? But I was excited to go to the first event that I was able to go to. I actually ended up skipping a birthday party for it.
It's the power of PNP people.
That's the power of PNP, yeah. And a couple people at the party knew because my wife told them. She said, "Oh yeah, he's at this networking event." I go, "Oh, PNP's tonight. I think is he at the PNP event?" And she said, "Yeah, I think something like that." And for me, it was just exciting to be able to get back in the room and see some of the familiar faces, reconnect with you. I haven't been able to get to another one, but it really is just really nice to see those things back in the swing of things. And I like the insight that you shared too of like it allowed you the time to kind of see the mistakes, learn from them, and kind of recreate and do it the way that you really want to do it. With you, Doug, your mantra. So I started with your mantra, Adam. So we're going to end with Doug's here.
That works.
Is you,
I didn't know I
you
had
said,
a mantra. I'm excited to hear my mantra.
Well, you said you live by 2 rules.
Oh no, my rules. Okay.
One of them is your wife. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Well, you said you live by 2 rules. One, always have a backup. Excuse me. It's actually always have backup.
That's right.
And 2, never be backup.
That's right. Yeah, you always want to have a backup plan, whether it's when it's structuring a loan, that you look at it and see that there's a potential roadblock down the road. You always want to have a plan for what you're going to do when you get there, so that when you get there, it's not a big problem. So you always want to have backup. But you don't want to be anybody else's backup. Like, I always want to be the first option that they think of, not a backup. So my plan is always, it's funny how many times I've said those rules. I kind of forgot I'd added those on there. They apply always. Like, my kids know the rules. They've said I've heard those rules repeated back to me from friends of my kids, not knowing that those rules came from me. That's pretty funny. But yeah, they apply, I think, in a lot of different ways. You always have backup, never be backup.
Awesome.
And to be completely fair, I can't take 100% credit for those rules. Those are rules that a really good friend of mine and I came up with, 30 years ago or something. So 28 years ago or something. It was just a night at the bar, and out they came, and we've laughed at them. And the next day, one of us remembered them, and we're like, wait, those are pretty good. So I've stuck with them. I have no idea if he has or not.
Well, that's cool. That's really cool. So if someone's looking for a mortgage in our area, how can they get in touch with you guys? Email is the best?
Yeah, email. Or
anyway,
stop in our office.
That's right. Best ability is availability, right?
Right.
So
yeah, you got a nice office on
right.
55 over there in Poughkeepsie.
If you want to bring the golf clubs, you can even play some golf.
You got that. That's something that we should definitely share with others. Is if you're looking for a pretty cool mortgage appointment,
that's right.
I would certainly set one with you guys if you like golf, because you guys have probably one of the coolest indoor golf ranges I've seen in anybody's facility. You can rent one somewhere, but this one, if you're just going looking for a mortgage,
we're happy to play golf with
literally anyone.
So if you want to play golf and there's a foot of snow on the ground, reach out and grab your sticks and come on to the office, and we'll hit some golf balls, and you can play around at TPC Scottsdale or St. Andrews, or It's a lot of fun.
So if they go to Nationwide, how do they want to find it on the internet?
Well, we are nmbnow.com/Poughkeepsie if you want to find our office.
Fantastic. That'll be in the show notes. And I know, Adam, we got people that are listening that are going to say, how do I get on Adam's email list for P&P?
Yeah, so just reach out to me at asimpson@nmbnow.com, and I'll be happy to put you on that list, and feel free to come as my guest. I'll introduce you around.
Awesome. That'll be in the show notes too.
That's true. We could go to PNP's website as well. That's pnphv.com.
Yep, very cool. Great networking events. A lot of fun. I want to thank you both for coming in today, sharing your stories, and helping me learn more about the mortgage industry. Something very informative. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
well, thanks for having us, Michael.
Thank you for listening to the Michael Esposito Show. For show notes, video clips, and more episodes, go to michaelespositoinc.com/podcast. Thank you again to our sponsor, Den 10 Insurance Services, helping businesses get the right insurance for all their insurance needs. Visit den10.io to get a quote. That's DENTEN.io. And remember, when you buy an insurance policy from Den10, you're giving back on a global scale. This episode was produced by Uncle Mike at the iHeart Studios in Poughkeepsie. Special thanks to Lara Rodrian for the opportunity and my team at Michael Esposito, Inc.